I think that we all have like a duty and a responsibility to contribute to a society and education systems that foster well-being among all learners. And when I think about the work of Connected North and the words of the late Murray Sinclair, education is what got us into this mess and it will get us out of it. And so when we
Mhm.
think about the residential school system and how education was a tool that caused a lot of harm, I think that it's very powerful for all Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples to work together to create healthy educational experiences for students.
Ever since I began my teaching career, educational leadership has been something that has really worked to eliminate the titles and the idea that leaders are only people with that are principals or superintendents or directors, that kind of thing, and that everybody has an opportunity to lead. And while that's, I think, pretty true within a K-12 organization, I don't think we often think about it so much as for those people outside of that part of the work. And today's guest, Jennifer Corriero, really, I think, epitomizes what it means to be a leader in education, although she is not traditionally a classroom teacher or part of a K-12 organization. Jennifer Corriero is a social innovator, co-founder of Taking It Global from over 25 years, as well as running the Connected North program. And I think what is so impressive about Jennifer, among other things, is the fact that, first of all, she doesn't look like she's been doing this for 25 years, but that's maybe my old eyes seeing everybody as really young. But really, to think about having an organization like that a nonprofit organization that's been going on for 25 years, that is unheard of, really, in this kind of space. I think there's a lot of people with great intentions who start up programs like this and for a variety of reasons cannot sustain them. They just aren't sustainable. But Jennifer has really, I think, done tremendous work in this area. And I've known of Taking It Global for years and Connected North more recently, learning all the amazing things that she and her partner have been able to accomplish and their team. And it's truly impressive. Jennifer shares some powerful stories. I think that's always a part that gets me, like lots of data, but also really great stories about the influence that their work has had on individual lives and the difference that she's making. But again, just so impressive to have a legacy already that is still going strong. That is not easy to do. Nonprofits are not easy to sustain and keep going, especially in education. So kudos to Jennifer, and I hope you just really enjoy today's conversation with Jennifer Corriero. So what is Taking It Global and Connected North? They're partners, but they're not exactly the same things.
That's right. Yes. Connected North is a program of Taking It Global. So Connected North delivers live, interactive, virtual field trips for students from kindergarten all the way up to grade 12 that are our partner schools. So there's 200 partner schools across Northern remote First Nations, Inuit, and Metis communities. And Taking It Global is the charity that is the home that operates the Connected North program. Yeah.
So you and I are here because of a mutual colleague, Brenda Sherry, who
Yes.
I've worked with and you've worked with, and I know of her past. She talks very passionately about the work of Connected North, and I've had some conversations with her. But my ignorance of the North has decreased slightly, partly because of her and some of the other people I've got to know up the North. But tell us about what are the impact stories? So you're doing this work, and people can envision why you would do it and how, but what's the impact of this work?
Yeah. The biggest impact that drives my motivation with the program is that 96% of teachers report that the program increases student engagement, attendance, and motivation for learning. And so really it's about creating meaningful memories together while students are in school and we're just in the back pockets of teachers, a resource that in-class, in-person teachers can use to bring their students places that they might not otherwise have the opportunity to visit just due to the high cost of travel. And we have a network of over 400, we call them content providers. So that is galleries, museums, science centers, aquariums, the space station, cultural centers, independent artists, scientists, entrepreneurs. 50% of our content providers are Indigenous role models. So the biggest impact is as well that students see themselves represented in their learning. They see different examples of success. And we also partner with over 60 post-secondary colleges and university campuses. So students who may not have the chance to see what it might be like or to hear what programs might be available for them to feel very welcomed to different campuses and to see themselves in bright places in their futures.
How long you been doing it? The Connected North
Connected
part?
North has been part of my life now for 10 years.
Okay. Yeah, and I know Brenda talked about doing this through COVID, which was nice in some respects. You could continue to a certain degree the way you'd always done it. But so 10 years,
Yeah.
that means that the kids that you reached in those early years they're out of school now. Do you have any examples of kids who, whether directly or indirectly, because of that, it's always difficult to say but just there's a really nice connection between now there's a kid that's doing a thing that was partly born or maybe more directly born out of an experience they had with Connected North.
I do have a story.
I like
So
this.
my first trip to Nunavut was in 2015. And I learned about Connected North. Initially, the program actually started at Cisco as their corporate social responsibility initiative. And it was ignited by the prompt and invitation of the current Governor General, the Honorable Mary Simon. She was previously the head of ITK, Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami, and they're the representative body for Inuit Nunangat. All this to say that I heard about Connected North, and one of the first students when we first then took on the role in leading the program in 2015, a grade 10 student, Patricia, her last name is now Pitsiolak. She is in Arvit, Nunavut, and she was first a student that accessed the program by attending Connected North sessions. And today, she is a graduate also of Arctic College and is someone who books Connected North sessions as a grade 4 teacher.
There you go.
And just like with Pink Shirt Day, she had her classroom there and they were all wearing their pink shirts and talking about kindness. And so for her, it's like she experienced the benefits firsthand. And now she is also a spokesperson. I was at NTA, a Nunavut Teachers Association. They had a special gathering in September and she was there. And I was like, oh, Patricia, look at you. So she shared her experience and the benefits of the program with other teachers across Nunavut.
And here's the thing that always has it's I don't know if it's a white whale or whatever you're going to call it. It's a difficult thing to pin down. And that is the impact that whether you're a teacher or a program like this that you have to someone years later. So you talked about you have data that shows engagement and stuff. That's awesome. That's important. But in the end, like when people like this, what Patricia and others can point back to something that they did 10 years ago that still had an impact on us, that's really powerful. And so education has a difficult time in quantifying the impact that educators have on people long term. We're great at saying you wrote a test and we're great. That's fine. Important. But for those of us who think about legacy and think about that kind of stuff, like those are the stories that go, that's why we do the stuff we do. Like it's just so exciting.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my high school principal, Mr. Day, who at one point invited me to apply for a youth advisory council. And I would have never otherwise considered it. And I did. And that was my first opportunity where I pitched an idea to a city councilor and then went up to the whiteboard and explained, because I was like, do we have a budget? And he was like, what would you need? So I started writing it out on the whiteboard and it added up to $1,500. So that was our pitch. And then he found the money and that was the first time I fundraised. And
Wow.
that was incredible. And then I think about, Mr. Carbone, he was my science teacher, and he thought that I might be interested in applying to the Ontario Science Centre Science School. And I actually got in. And that's what exposed me to the power of being around scientists. And I think about today in our network of science centers that deliver sessions through Connected North and help students see themselves as scientists. So that's going to improve their chances of thriving in STEM. And the same thing, like I had an opportunity during March break, I had writer's block. I had to read 1984, and I was so depressed about that story. Like, it was so heavy to write that essay, and I had writer's block. So I made a painting over March break, and when I came in, I needed an extension for this essay, and the head of the art department saw my art piece, and he said, "Keep painting." And he helped me identify themes for my paper just based on what I painted, and that just has me so passionate about the arts as a hook for learning. So I think back to those teachers who gave me a chance and who believed in me. And that's pretty much why I'm so motivated to surround generations of children and youth with so many adults that believe in them, and to also help teachers know about other opportunities that they can refer their students to. So yeah, just huge thank you to all the educators out there.
So the first story you told there is about a teacher that kind of got you thinking about some activism and fundraising and all that stuff. And again, you and your partner Michael are the founders of all this stuff, and so
Mhm.
there's probably a really interesting stories there for sure. But do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur? Is that the
Yes.
way?
I
And
describe myself as a social entrepreneur.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
okay. We're trying to make how. First of all, you probably know this, Jennifer. If you're thinking about making a lot of money, education is not the place to go. You are
Agreed.
not going to get super rich in education. No matter how wonderful a program you have, there's just not many people who make a ton of money in this field. So
That's right.
you could take your skill and invest in other kind of organizations and focuses that would probably be way better financially. So how do you make that decision saying, I have this skill, but I want to do it in, because you're not technically an educator in that sense. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't have that. You aren't trained to be a teacher,
My master's degree is in environmental studies,
right?
and my undergrad is interdisciplinary. So it's business, communication, technology, and culture. I had to convince York to let me have 4 majors in my
Yeah.
degree. But yes, I am not trained as a classroom teacher. Yeah,
That you're
that's
making in
correct.
education is that's what I'm trying to get as it's significant. So it's not like the direct path of, oh, I was a teacher and I also have this entrepreneurial skill. And so I've done that. That would to me, you went from this having the skill, but it was always the goal going to be like, I want to impact kids and students and learning. Has that always been the
Yeah, so I
focus?
was 19 when I started. I just graduated from high school, and I felt almost like it wasn't fair that I got opportunities and nominations for things. Like I just gave thanks, and there's so many more names I could of people. Like Mr. Coots was my grade 7 teacher, and he asked if I wanted to direct the school play of all grade 7s and 8s. So I had a director title in grade 7, and that was huge. But then all of a sudden I questioned, why me? And what if we could create more opportunities for more people, because it's so hard to get access to enrichment learning opportunities. And also I grew up with the internet, like my generation. And how can we use technology and the power of collaborative technologies? Our charity created one of the world's first social networks for social change and one of the world's first multilingual platforms on the internet. Going back to 2002, I speak to our youth participants. They're like, I was born in
Be,
1999. I was like, wow.
be quiet. We don't know how young you are.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I have always wanted to improve like school for kids. That was, and through everything that we have done since the beginning, that is something that I was just always passionate about since graduating from high school.
And again, just to help me understand better too.
Okay.
So Connected North is obviously it has a very specific audience that it's trying to work towards, and yet it's part of a taking a global. But help those of us understand who aren't in the North. Sure, I can appreciate the remoteness. That's easy to understand as a big driver of why this is important and significant. But what are some other things that people need to understand? And again, you may say some things I hope that I actually know now because I can, as I said, I have been ignorant, but I'm trying to decrease that ignorance. That people should just know about the North around why this is such an important thing, not just to do a good thing for those folks, but maybe there's a tangential outcome that benefits all Canadians.
Yeah, I will share. So I'm not Indigenous myself. So I'm the granddaughter of Italian immigrants, and I live in Toronto. So Treaty 13 territory, dish with one spoon treaty territory. And I mention that too as I reflect as a Canadian on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action, the 94 calls to action. And I think that we all have like a duty and a responsibility to contribute to a society and education systems that foster well-being among all learners. And when I think about the work of Connected North and the words of the late Murray Sinclair, education is what got us into this mess and it will get us out of it. And so when we
Mhm.
think about the residential school system, and how education was a tool that caused a lot of harm. I think that it's very powerful for all Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples to work together to create healthy educational experiences for students. And I would say Taking It Global offers a lot of educational programs for students around the world. And I've traveled to over 50 countries, even prior to Connected North being a part of Taking It Global. But there really is something that drew me in as I had the opportunity, continue to have opportunities to work alongside learners and educators in First Nations, Inuit, and Metis communities. I'm compelled by, be it the Dene laws or the Anishinaabe grandfather or grandmother teachings, emphasizing respect and truth, and thinking about aspects like Cree teachings. Jasmine on our team shares TP teachings, and respect is also really at the core, and love and the intergenerational relationships, land-based education. So how can different Indigenous worldviews be celebrated and incorporated in the way learning experiences unfold, not only for Indigenous students, but I think all of us can
Yeah.
really benefit. So I think that's what makes it compelling to be a part of this diverse network that involves so many different nations. And there's a lot of nation to nation sharing and cross cultural sharing. And the program is all about affirming the identities and also for students to feel rooted in where they live and be able to access learning opportunities that don't sever those cultural connections, but actually enhance their cultural connections. And there's a lot of teachings like the Yukon First Nations School Board talks a lot about walking in both worlds and how Connected North is a real complement to the engagement of land-based learning and involvement of elders. So yeah, I think that we all have a part to play in helping children and youth thrive in schools, and we can't just expect teachers to do everything all by themselves.
100%. And one more thing that's I've been thinking about lately, and I heard an interview with the three premiers of the Yukon Northwest Territories and Nunavut, talking about the current political situation with the US in terms of tariffs and all that stuff, and the economics of how can Canada improve their economic stature. And they were very clear saying, you have to pay attention to the North. Like you have to pay, like we have the resources. So as much as there is an ethical and moral imperative, there is truly an economic piece, which for some people is and again, that said, being super, super cautious about not just being completely capitalistic and colonialism coming over doing this again, because we did that one time already, which didn't work out great. But the opportunity to work with and together with these communities who understand the land and have a sense that the rest of us might not have, and yet appreciate that there may be economic opportunities. And so to make, whether that's making the North more appealing for people to live there and reside there, but their call was the Canadians have to invest more in the North. And I think what you're doing as an organization, just to create some cultural understanding and connection, is going to make this way richer and better. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's my
And
little.
we service almost every school in the Arctic. So all 45 schools across Nunavut, elementary and high schools, all schools in the Yukon and in the Northwest Territories, all schools in the Beaufort Delta region, in the Dehcho region, and in the South Slave region. So 27 schools in the Northwest Territories. And yeah, the knowledge held by community members and their ability to thrive, if you think about, yeah, the weather conditions alone and just the
Sure.
knowledge of the stars, the knowledge of the land, the knowledge of living healthy lives, like you talked about too. Oh, your life path probably isn't for the money. And it's, yeah, and I live off my sense of purpose and I thrive off a sense of shared vision and a sense of community and social connectedness. And being in good relationship and being along a life path that is contributing. And that's the invitation for everyone, like regardless of where you focus your time, like how can we contribute to like a healthy society? Yeah, so with the Arctic becoming a greater like a focal point, I was also at the Yukon Chamber of Commerce as a keynote speaker a few months ago at a conference called Magnetic North. They were talking about economic development, and I got to share you can't have economic development without human development. We need
Right.
to develop our people.
That's right. Yeah, no, and I think it's there's opportunities, exciting, and I think it's probably hope of creating that a greater sense of pride amongst our northern folks to be able to say, "Hey, we have something to offer here in many ways," right? First and
Mhm.
foremost, as human beings, live in a very unique part of the world and understand it in ways that many people don't. But yeah, so I want more stories.
Okay.
And so I love your first story about Patricia, but I'm asking you to think about a highlight reel. So this may be about specifically about people, but it could be about maybe an amazing offering that came together. But when you say take 10 years of Connected North and you got to do like I don't know, 30-minute highlight reel with 3 stories, maybe use the Patricia story as one that maybe, or you got maybe other ones. Like what are the highlights that come to mind in the last 10 years?
When we first started, there were no science centers doing virtual field trips. It was only for the kids that were able to come on site. And pre-pandemic, we were the partner of several science centers. Now we have over 10 that are also members of the Canadian Association of Science Centers. And so when I think about how we're creating a more accessible field of science education, that would be one story, and how students are learning about solar powered cars, like they're making little cars. They're having remote controls, and obviously they can't do it in, let's say, Pond Inlet has 24 hours of darkness in December, so they have to wait for the times of year where there's sunlight. But having these experiential hands-on learning opportunities in science is one area that we've contributed, not only for the schools that participate in Connected North, but a lot of the science centers are now, and especially in the pandemic, we were the go-to for so many institutions on how to deliver virtual field trips. So we've actually helped build capacity and an ecosystem across Canada for educational organizations that actually benefit all Canadians. So being a catalyst, science is one area. I want to mention about art also. So there's a lot of sessions. So Kevin Westaquate, so he's the founder of the Indigenous Poets Society. And so he is a poet. He does a lot of poetry slams, but then he also does visual art sessions with the students. And at Wanuskewin in Saskatoon, they had an art exhibit of bison art by students that were created during Connected North sessions, but then came on display within an art gallery exhibition. And so that's also the future that I see. Like I see more opportunities for student work to be exhibited and for their artistic talents to be showcased. There's also fitness. So we have a lot of fitness sessions and music sessions where there may not be like a gym teacher or there may not be a music teacher. So students are doing animal yoga with Heather Cherise. They're moving like a frog or a bear, like wiggling
Mm-hmm.
like a snake. The physical movement, they're reflecting on animals or birds in their area, insects, and they're embodying that. So the physical learning piece. And then just with music, we recently got a grant where we're also able to give instruments, and students have taken part in a 10 session series in order to learn how to perform a song and then perform it for family members. So thinking about how family members are part of the learning. When I was in Kugluktuk in May, so about a year ago, I introduced myself. That's the most Western community in Nunavut, for those who don't know. I introduced myself to different people in the community. I remember walking into an office and I said, "Oh, hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm with Connected North." And it was an Inuk mother who said, "Oh, I know all about Connected North. My kids tell me about it all the time." So they come home and they bring their completed works. They might have completed a carving, like this little seal carving from Priscilla Boulay. We send the materials, and then the students, they take home their work. So when we think about what happens in school, And in one learning moment, it's how this can invite the entire family and the entire community to celebrate and to reinforce that excitement to pursue further. We've supported students in their transitions to post-secondary, and I was watching a recording by Mackenzie, who's from Kugluktuk. She was talking about her studies at the University of Calgary, and she had only thought to go to university because she had done a Connected North session with the University of Calgary. And then we followed up, and she was able to access information on how to apply. And sometimes institutions, it's like a logo that just seems so unattainable and
Yeah.
it's almost dehumanizing. But when you have a person and you have a connection, it really makes those huge leaps across vast
Yeah.
distances attainable. I did more than 3 examples there.
That's okay. Well, those are all great. And I think the other thing to just to call out that I think is so awesome. And again, this idea of virtual field trips. And again, I've been part of a lot of these in my past life and they're great. But what yours is uniquely different is the degree to which you are providing either materials or experiences. So it's not a passive experience, which is often what we think of when we think of a virtual field trip. It's kids sitting in a room and then the scientist is talking and then they might ask questions, which is can be fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But this is more about this is that and there's a human experience where somebody's touching and feeling a particular object that they're manipulating or an instrument or whatever that is and making something and bringing something home as an artifact of their learning. And yeah, so I think that is definitely your unfair advantage, if you will, in this space to create those kinds of experiences for kids and for teachers. So that, yeah, I think so good. So let me shift gears just maybe a little bit and we'll still be talking about all the things you do, but maybe more broadly, just talking about some leadership as a theme of my show. It sounds like everything always works out perfectly in Connected North. Like nothing ever goes wrong. There's no challenge. It's just smooth, super smooth sailing. But let's just say maybe there was a leadership challenge along the way that you had to address that maybe had you concerned and or frustrated and or whatever. Do you have a leadership challenge that you could share?
Absolutely. There's 2 little challenges I can share. One is that every first off, we operate as a charity and we have partnerships with education, either districts or councils or school boards, however it's structured. And in Canada, K to 12 education is not only by jurisdiction in province and territory, but depending if it's maybe on reserve or off reserve, or depending on the governance structure working within First Nations, Inuit, and Metis communities, there are very different life cycles and timelines. So even though even the start and end of the school year, their dates, our reporting timelines are completely different. So I have a fiscal year report due almost every month. And so from a planning perspective, it is highly complex and actually unrealistic reporting timelines. Now, how we address that challenge is through database driven dashboards that we've been able to develop and evolve over time so that we can literally at any moment pull up details and I can create a beautiful data visualization so that if I do get a phone call from a director and they want something within the hour, it is actually feasible. So with the help of great technologists on our team that have helped to create our imagination of what we wish we had and then the time to build it, that's how we address some of the reporting challenges and fundraising. And you said unfair advantage. Ideally, all children in school would have access to the available equipment and materials to be able to participate fully in a holistic learning experience and to have that it wouldn't be such a struggle. We are constantly fundraising for the cost of materials. So we not only work with public education systems, but we also make requests from foundations and individual donors. So if it wasn't for their generosity, like we wouldn't be able to send the materials 50%. Last year, we delivered over 6,000 live sessions and over 50%,
Amazing.
over 3,000 involved materials. So we're just
Yeah.
constantly flowing. The other leadership challenge is managing feedback because we want to delight our participants. And so we've created a rating system like an Uber ride. After every experience, we get a 5-star rating. And any rating that's a 3 or below pretty much goes through a pretty comprehensive review process. So I'd say in my seat, it's like how to make sure that we're not overreacting or underreacting when we get one kind of sour experience. We show responsiveness, respect, and we consider not only the perspective of the teacher, but we also get a rating from the content provider as well as our session host. And our satisfaction rating is over 90%. So because we're rating every single day, we're not just waiting for the end of the year. I think we're able to be highly responsive. And so that's like our strategy. But I would say the challenge is it can create overload when you're so receptive to feedback all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I think a lot of us can relate to I'll speak somewhere and I'll get feedback, and 90% of people say, oh, it's the best. It's lovely. They say very nice things and it's all good. But one person like, I don't know about that. And then you obsess over the
I
one
know.
when, there also just is the reality of like, you cannot please everybody. That's just an impossibility. And yet there's this unrealistic belief that I think I could please everybody. If we just fix this, everybody would be happy all the time. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
just
got
that.
me.
Yeah, no, I know. I fully get that, but sometimes you need somebody else to say, you know what? Listen, but again, I always want to be, at least, even if I never win that person over, acknowledge that, hey, I heard what you said. I can appreciate it. I don't know if I can fix it for you, but I don't want to also just pass it off.
Yeah, like I always think to myself, like there's always something I can do.
Sure.
And even if what I can do is look into if this is a pattern, and actually some of our best ideas have actually come from a complaint. Not to say that we need more complaints,
Sure.
but yeah, we're like, oh, I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective. So I would say that my role as a leader is to seek to understand.
That's right. That's right. And again, you need people who are providing outlying data and information that doesn't fit in the norm, but might make us go, ooh, they're thinking a thing that nobody's thinking of, but that seems like we should. So yeah, I've learned that over the years, not to take things all personally, but use it
Mhm.
as an opportunity. I think one of the things that's impressive about you, Jennifer, is that as a female in particular, in often a male driven kind of world of entrepreneurs and so forth, although that those demographics are certainly getting more balanced, but I think you do represent somebody for a young woman to say, hey, she looks like she's having fun at her job. I'd like to do that too. That looks like a cool thing to do. So what advice do you give to those young women, whether they're in the North or anywhere that you're connecting with, to say, hey, if you're thinking about this as a future, here's what I would suggest you consider, work on, or explore?
Yeah. Yeah. Any advice for emerging professionals, young women, young men, non binary people,
Sure.
just to say networks? I really like to attend different networking events, and I think about different professional associations where I may hold the designation should I be admitted into that professional association, or even groups that I'm not part of. I think that, for example, there's a association of fundraising professionals, and there's associations for program evaluators, and there's chambers of commerce, and even there's a science teachers association, which now we're going to get a booth at, thinking about what you want to pursue and what are the skills that you need. And in order to gain those skills, sometimes it might be taking a course in a formal like education system, post secondary, perhaps, but then also looking at mini modules. There's lots of LinkedIn learning courses or other forms of micro credentials, but also don't just do things to get like a piece of paper. Engage yourself in an immersive way and pick up knowledge by seeking to hear stories of people that are doing the things that you find fascinating. Listening to podcasts like yours is
Yeah.
another great idea.
So as you're speaking,
Mhm.
a thought came to my mind, and so I will share this with you. It seems like the way, because listen, I'm all into the networking part, and I have some thoughts about networking I want to just explore too. But
Okay.
there seems to be a bit of a leaning towards extroverts as being good at this work because you're meeting with a lot of different people. And so I guess I wonder, and again, I don't know if you consider yourself an extrovert, introvert. That you can tell me where you land on that scale. But I guess I wonder, is the entrepreneurial life that involves this networking, which I think is critical, is it more geared towards the extrovert, or can you see a way that says you don't have to be an extrovert to take advantage of networking and be involved in that? I don't know. Again, maybe I'm putting you on the spot with that one, but
No,
I wonder
I
if you have any thoughts
appreciate
on
it.
that question.
People think that it's about what to say, but I would say entrepreneurship is more about what you can observe and how well you listen and how well you understand and tune into the needs of who you're trying to serve. And sometimes an extrovert is focusing so much on what they're putting out there, they're actually not as receptive. So I think it's important to have a healthy balance. And even for myself, some people think I just have endless energy and I never get tired of, oh no, I just hide away. So when I'm
Yeah,
tired, you're not
sure,
going to find me because I'm
sure.
just going to cocoon, and rest is also important. And I think that's also about the perseverance and durability, because it's one thing to have an idea and it's also another thing to start something, but to last and evolve. Like I was just told by one of my coaches, like your organization shouldn't exist according to the statistics. Like the number of either for-profit or nonprofit organizations, like startups that survive like the 25-year mark, which we just hit, the odds are against you.
Sure.
So I would say too, yes, I am a social entrepreneur and I did start an organization. At the same time, like we need social innovators, and that does include intrapreneurship. So you can make a difference without having to start at all. If that's not for you, there's huge risks associated with creating your own organization, and it's amazing and it's also exhausting, and
Mhm.
it's sometimes the most rewarding experience, and sometimes you can feel really defeated and it's hard to, it's not for everyone, the path, but I think
Sure.
what is for everyone is the opportunity to contribute to community, and it shouldn't be about the title that we hold. And I get declined and shed tears every time I get a proposal that's declined or funding that's not renewed. And I
Sure.
take it personally. But then I'm like, but I gave my best effort. And I'm also a mother. My son is 12. And I said, it's not about being perfect. It's about giving your best and it's about enjoying the journey.
Sure. Yeah. And the one thing I just want to pick up on when you talked about listening, and this is something that, like, when I talk, because again, part of this podcast is to help people build their networks too. Like, I know people from lots of places, as do you. And I have a very extensive network, and I'm very grateful for that network. But there are people who have big networks too, but often look at people as they're part of my network for because what they can give me. They're almost seen as an asset to them, as opposed to just another interesting human being. So my perspective is always, I'm interested in you because you're a fascinating person, and whether or not you can benefit me in my career in any way, that's secondary. That might happen, but I don't care if it doesn't. Like, I'm just grateful to know people that are doing interesting work. And so I think that to me is an authenticity that I would invite people to think about, because you can shake hands with 25 people, and every time you're doing it, you're thinking, what is it for me? How can they help me? Which is I don't know. It's one way to do the work. It's just not my way of doing it. And I think the listening part that you said really speaks to the fact that introverts they're going to be more listening than they are talking, generally speaking.
Hmm.
I
I
tried to
think so.
identify self. Well, I feel like I'm in the middle somewhere, omnivert or whatever it's called, ambivert. But that,
That's
yeah, it
good.
just made me think about it, that I hadn't thought about it in that way. So I appreciate you calling that out. So I don't know if that resonates with you.
Yeah, it
Uh,
does. I think so. And also just like your point about that authenticity and just soaking in. Someone once said to me, like, bless your challenges. If you have a challenge, like that's your gift. That's
yeah,
what you are given to be able to face. And sometimes we have these feelings like, oh, like I can't dot dot. But when we're able to see the challenges that are within our realm as the opportunities that we are given to learn, and if we can see every day as a learning opportunity, I think it allows us to thrive as humans.
that's awesome. All right, we're gonna hit the home stretch here.
All
And
right.
we'll talk. So, um, I always like to know what people are, and it can be usually professionally, but it might not be. What are you reading and or listening to these days?
Okay. So I was recently in a conversation with Ken Coates, who I met through the Conference Board of Canada, and he recommended a book that I am reading. It's called Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis by Robert Putnam, and it's talking about educational segregation and what contributes to student success and as far as socioeconomic factors, family situations. I'm not fully halfway through the book, so I'm not ready to give you a book report, but I tend to read books or watch things that are recommended by people, or sometimes I'll pick up a book, like if I'm traveling somewhere, I want to learn more, so I'll always try to go to a bookstore and read it on the airplane or wherever.
Now I'm curious because I read a book by Robert Putnam 25 years ago called
Bowling
Bowling
Alone.
Alone.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yes.
right.
I did not know. So now I'm interested because that
I know.
perspective, that was really an influential book for me in understanding the loss of community and what's going on in our world that happened. And it was a very thoughtful read. So I am interested in that book. What about, okay, you said you're a social entrepreneur, you're a mother and so forth, but like at some point you got to just like veg out, sit in front of a TV and watch something really bad, but really good. Do you have that? Can you give me something, or are you going to tell me?
I'm going to give you something that I'm going to give you.
No, but here's what it breaks my heart when somebody says, I don't have time to watch TV. It's, oh, really? Oh, please just tell me you do.
I love movies. The reason I love movies is that I like there to be a start and an end. The truth is, if I start to watch those series,
Right.
I really feel that my time and my brain is, I don't want to
You're
give
not patient
my
enough to watch
energy.
the end of yeah. Okay. So because
Yeah,
there's two school of thoughts, right? There's the one that like, I love it when I see a series I haven't watched and there's 7 seasons. It's okay. This will keep me going for a long time. But
right.
what you're saying is that's not interesting to me. I
It
want to
drains.
I want
Yeah.
to look at the end of the book to find out like who the killer was.
Beginning, middle, end. I will say though, the Netflix series North of North, I watched the whole thing.
Okay. I saw that one.
And I absolutely love it. And several of the actors in it also are Connected North
There you
friends.
go. That's
So
going to make it better too. Just
that
knowing
made it
people
so
for,
great. And
okay.
it's
There's
nice to
one, North
share
and
about
North.
that for people who want to learn a little bit more about
Yeah.
life in the
That's
Arctic.
funny
It's
too,
really
right?
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was great.
But what else? Give me what else that you want to add to that list.
In terms of watching, I know like this is just the honest truth. I really don't watch much television. I like TED Talks as well, mostly because again, start to finish, efficient use of my time. I don't like to I stare at a screen a lot all days.
Sure.
I
No, I get it.
actually love to paint. I like to get acrylic paints and a large canvas, and that makes me really happy. I like to do I have a class pass, so I really like to try new things when it comes to fitness. And so I like to try I have digital classes that I'll take sometimes, but I absolutely love going to an exercise class in a different studio even when I travel, if it's
Yeah.
available to me. Like when I was in Yellowknife, there was a yoga class that I went to and it was fantastic, or like a
Fun.
Zumba class. So I like to
Yeah.
dance. Yeah.
Okay. So you're making me rethink because like I ask that question all the time, but I know I either need to modify it or add a question. Like, what's your kind of vegging out?
That's like my
Sometimes
recharge.
yeah, your recharge activity. And sometimes maybe for some people it is sitting watching something, and I get it. So anyway, last question. So you're in Toronto.
Yeah.
Lots of people are in and out of Toronto. Lots of people know things about Toronto. If I Google things to do in Toronto, you and I can both probably list what would probably be at the top of that list, but I don't want what's on the top of that list. I want to know an insider's take on here's something you might not know about a place, a thing, or whatever that you might want to check out because it's awesome.
All right. I love the water and the waterfront. And so there's this place called the Music Garden. And on Thursday nights in the summer, they have live music. So that's a really special place. And I work and then live on this walk to Billy Bishop Airport. And so I always spend some time, and there's beautiful flowers, and it's just set out. The Music Garden is just this not huge tourist attraction, but I mean, there always are so many tourists also in the area, but it's just my happy place.
That is great. And I will be spending a lot of time in Ontario in the next few months. So I'm going to check that out if I'm there on a Thursday evening. Thank you very much, Jennifer. This was great to get to know you. Your congratulations on 10 years of Connected North and 25 years of taking it global.
Oh,
Again.
there's one more
Oh.
thing.
One more thing.
Okay, just this week, the organization received an award. We are among the top 10 of healthiest workplaces in Canada, as awarded by Dialogue. And that is something that means a lot to me, because we offer programs that support well-being in others, but you can't
Yes.
others if you don't have a healthy team yourself. So I did just want to share that as a highlight.
That's
Yes.
fantastic. And now that makes me think, well, maybe we should have another podcast talk specifically about that, because I'd like to know more about that. But
Thank
good
you.
way to put that in. But anyways, it was lovely to meet you and get to know you. And I hope we can maybe get to know each other and learn and work together in the future.
Sounds great. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.